Welcome to Movies, Films, and Flix. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who rides a wave like he rides a shark. It's Adam Hodgins.
I had been known to ride both a wave and a shark.
Now, this movie that we're talking about, there is no shark riding.
No, they don't jump or ride the shark ever.
But I kind of feel like if you were in a movie, you would.
So I was the most excited last year for Aquaman.
Yeah.
Just because one of the toys that came out was Aquaman riding a shark like a horse. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't care what else happens in the movie. If that happens, give him the Oscar.
No, that's a great. You know what bummed me out? So we have our episode Sharks in Sweden. Great movie. Mm. We're huge fans of that film.
Huge.
And Dolph Lundgren was in Aquaman, and they put him on a seahorse.
Yeah, they had the moment there, and if they would have had him it would have been a no-brainer to have him straddle a shark and then passively call him one of the names of the sharks from Sharks in Sweden as a nice little nod.
Yeah, that'd have been amazing. But why?
Right.
Do you think they put him on a seahorse because if they put him on a shark, every screen would have just exploded? Yeah,
I think that when you're not the hero of the movie, to have a moment like Dolph Lundgren on a shark, it's such an iconic visual.
I don't want to start any issues here, but do you think in Jason Momoa's contract he wrote, "Do not put Dolph Lundgren on a shark"?
I respect Jason Momoa a lot more than most actors these days, and I think he'd be silly not to do that.
That's a shrewd business move.
Yeah, you just do that, right? Yeah. You say I'm kind of like Vin Diesel in the Fast and Furious movies now. I can't even look like I'm losing a fight for a second.
There could be no blood.
No blood.
My skin is impenetrable.
Yeah, I am Iron Man, says Vin Diesel.
Literal. Iron Skin Man.
Iron Skin Man.
That's why our last Witch Hunter, they made him immortal. And then in his latest one, I think he's immortal too.
Yeah, so he's a guy who, I don't know, he just, for me, always seems like he's just falls short of being great. Mm-hmm. I think he suffers from what works for some people and not for others, which is I think he just plays himself in every movie.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody casts Clint Eastwood and says, be something other than what you do, but just Eastwood picks roles that work for him.
And you think Vin does the same?
Yeah, but when I'm watching Saving Private Ryan, I'm like, oh, there's Dominic Toretto in World War II.
Yeah, what's he doing getting shot?
Right.
And why did the bullet just not get spit out of his body?
Right. If I'm watching Pitch Black, I'm like, oh, there's Dominic Toretto in space.
Yeah, drinking Corona. Drinking
Corona. He just plays that one-dimensional guy, but he does it. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
How do you get the lime for his Corona in Pitch
Black? I think they freeze dry it like astronaut ice cream.
That makes a lot of sense. And then he opened up that little package of astronaut food. Yeah. Oh, so the limes were in that.
Yeah, I think the limes were in that. I think
Wow.
It's one of those dehydrated limes.
Okay. All right. So I guess we're gonna get into this movie, right? Sunset Shark Club.
But I
want to tell a story though about how I first learned about this movie, because as you know on this podcast, you've taught me about movies like Steel Dawn. I mean, you've introduced the world of Rutger Hauer to me. There's Icebreaker, our classic Icebreaker episode, which is, has maybe my favorite riffing ever in MFF history. The kitchen fight.
The kitchen. So when I listen to Icebreaker, the episode, which I do once or twice a week, it's the riffing of you and I retiring and having competing but not angry competing burger shacks.
Yeah, like we work together.
Yeah.
So you know what you can do?
And then reenacting the movie.
Yep.
Once a year, that bit made me feel like that should be a reality at some point.
Yeah, we need to get our coexisting mountain burger joints going, and then a yearly reenactment of Icebreaker. Yeah. With a built-in kitchen that we destroy.
Yeah, for sure.
So when I met you in 2011 in Toronto at a Comic-Con, I was like, I can trust this guy. And I remember I looked at you and I said, hey. I looked you right in the eye and I said, hey, man, we got the big lines over at Deep Space Nine crew. Go over there and tackle it. And you look at me and you go, the one thing about waves, when they come, you just got to look forward and paddle. And I went, I don't know what that means, but I like it. I think you're on fire. Later on, You crush the Deep Space Nine. You actually train the Deep Space Nine actors how to run their own line, which was crazy. And I said, hey, man, we got some issues over at Stan Lee. And you looked at me and you said, Mark, waves are like gusts of wind through the skyscrapers in New York City. They're fast, they're reliable, and they'll blow your mind. And I went, I don't know what that means either. But I was like, go crush it. And you went over there. And it was years later that I learned you were quoting the Sunset Shark Club.
Yeah, so it's some of Swayze's best lines.
Oh, there's so many.
Right.
I mean,
well, to me, it was the three rules where at the beginning where they established like that they're going for their first like shark surf, and then Swayze they like put their hands in. And they're like, it starts and stops with us, never involves civilians, and then it was like it ends with the wave.
Wow.
And you don't know what those mean yet, but there was such weight to them, and then those three rules come to play later on. But it's it's Swayze delivered lines in this movie like so. I think this is what I call Swayze's Big Brother trilogy. This is the third one.
Wow. So Red Dawn, Outsiders.
Red Dawn. So I don't consider Outsiders. That's more of an ensemble.
Youngblood.
But I say Red Dawn, Youngblood, and the Sunset Shark Club.
Wow. You're right.
Because he's always doing these movies with these like, again, Outsiders fits in with these younger cast guys and like the 80s Brat Pack kind of guys, but he's always like that few years older that he feels he has a different story than the rest of the characters involved. I mean, I feel like in Red Dawn, he was in a different story than the other brothers. Mm-hmm. Like the weight was on his shoulders the whole time.
I mean, he was in his 30s at the time, and then C. Thomas Howell, who's also in this movie, was 20.
Right.
So he is like a big brother in this movie.
So and looking back, when you look at like Annie Potts as the leading lady, they're
the same age too. Did you know that?
I was gonna say I think of her as an older than this crowd, because you think of like Pretty in Pink, she was like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of that movie, where she was giving what's her name?
Molly
Ringwald.
Yeah.
All like the advice and like. And then you think of her like in Ghostbusters, she was kind of this like spinster, goofy dork that, you know, was kissing Rick Moranis. Like you're like, what is this? So you don't think of her as like a Brat Pack leading lady, but she's the same age as Swayze, and Swayze playing that bit older character, it works in that context really well.
I really liked their relationship. So in our other shows, in Youngblood, that relationship, that one still blows my mind a little bit. But this one,
I feel icky. I feel icky watching that relationship.
It felt very organic, their love for each other, or how their bond. And also the interesting thing is, all right, so the Sunset Shark Club, they are the protagonists of this film. But if you think about it, this is why I love Bruce Dern's performance as Mayor Francis Manning. And I also love Sheriff Hooker, played by Keith David. And I love Deputy Manaskis, played by Dennis Dunn. I love how these guys are bad influences. They are literally, so the Sunset Shark Club, they go to the most dangerous places on Earth, and they swim. They surf with the sharks at sunset.
Right, at sunset. That's their whole thing, is that, because what's his line about death? He says,
I got it.
When you're out there, okay, what is it? Tell me with it.
I know when he said, why do you want to die? He said, because I'm afraid of never living. Was that the one?
Yeah, and what he says, when you're out there in the water with those beasts with you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. I had another quote. There's so many great quotes.
Then he pauses, and he says, what I'm trying to say is when you swim with death, then you truly feel alive. So it's this idea of like, there's these young guys, I want to say without direction in their life, that they're kind of living. You know, when you're young, Mark, and you can just believe in something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. When you're in high school, and you're like, oh, this is this cause or this thing that's come up, and it becomes the most important thing. You're like, why aren't my parents so concerned about this one issue? And they're like, oh, because they're adults that pay taxes and have like have a grasp on reality. And that's kind of what's going on here with these guys, is they're like, we're doing the most, you know, we want to live our life to the fullest, and this is the way we can do it. So it's almost like a drug they're addicted to.
And it kind of worried me a little bit, because these are the supposed protagonists, and when you get older, you realize, wait a second, like Ferris Bueller, that guy's kind of a jerk. You realize these guys were really bad influence on the local populace. So I kind of feel for the mayor, and I feel for Keith David's character in this, because, yeah, they're the quintessential 80s John Lithgow don't dance and Footloose type guys.
Right.
But they have more, they're more rational than any of the other overbearing fathers in
Right,
the
and
1980s movies.
I think that like it was a weird thing because there's nobody more hateable than Bruce Dern. Like
Yep.
when he plays a guy that is the villain of a movie, I'm in. Like I buy it. Like I think his best role was in Digstown, where he played like the crooked, like he wasn't the mayor. He was just like the like ruler of the town through all the he owned everything in town.
And I loved him in the movie Catapult Kings too.
Mm-hmm.
What do you like? Remember that? Like 89? It was him, it was Lithgow, and a very young Macaulay Culkin. It was, I don't know.
I think Culkin's always very young.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know, but just seeing him in that movie, he was definitely the villain, but I like him. Like, and he did the same in this. Sorry to interrupt with Digstown, but yeah, we're on the same wavelength here.
No.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, he was, and again, I think that these guys had the most valid point. Like, it wasn't like in Jaws where it's like, we need these summertime dollars and they're keeping the beaches open and risking people's lives. These guys are going to your town because there's a high, shark
sightings, I guess, population.
Yeah, they remember in the I think it wasn't the opening scene, but the second to opening scene when C. Thomas Howell's in his Jeep and he yells at the other guys and he's like, he heard on the radio there was like a shark attack.
Yeah, and then they get running, don't they?
They grab their boards and they're just off. And they're talking to those girls. Remember those girls on the beach?
Yep.
And they're talking to them. And then C. Thomas Howell yells from the Jeep. And they don't even say goodbye. They just go. It's like, yeah, you're interesting and you're valid to talk to unless I could surf with a shark.
And I think the women respected that to a certain extent because it wasn't rude that they ran away. They just had met the people and they had to rush to go.
Yeah, it was
to
like,
surf.
Destiny's calling kind of situation.
And it's funny you mentioned the Jeep, but I love that 1982 Jeep, CJ8 Scrambler that they're driving.
Yeah, it's a cross between like the sand dune buggies of the time and an actual car on the road, and it kind of hits both points. It's the perfect Jeep or like vehicle for those three guys to be cruising around in.
Now, when you were watching this movie, all right, so I came to this movie late, but you probably watched this really young, correct?
Yeah,
Since
so
this was released in 86.
Yeah, so this was a movie that my older sister was having friends over at a party, and she said if I didn't tell my parents, I could stay up late and watch the movie with her and her friends. So I watched this when I was like 8 years old.
Did it dawn on you that they are going to a town where someone was just killed by a shark to surf with those sharks, thus sort of pouring salt into the wound?
Well, I know because I was 8 years old, so I just remember thinking like, I wish I lived in the States. I could get a surfboard. Like this looks like the coolest moment of anybody's life ever, right?
Oh, look, the cinematography on this by Casper Schmeichel is amazing. Mm-hmm. Like the freedom. I don't know how they got that. I mean, in 86. Yeah, I wish there was a behind the scenes. There's not much behind. I've tried to read a lot about this, find quotes, but I couldn't find anything. But you're right. That's the surfing in this is. I would put it above Point Break.
No, so the surfing was great, and I thought also they did almost a better job. I don't want to. That's almost sacrilegious to say a better job than Jaws, but the way they intercut the shark footage that they went under and got kind of like not stock footage, but they went under and they shot sharks underwater. But the way they spliced that into the surfing scenes, I thought was done seamlessly.
Yeah, you know what? It never felt like B-roll that they purchased from the Discovery Channel or the equivalent back in 86. Yeah, oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was good.
Can I ask you something?
You can ask me anything.
Okay, so in this movie, there are 5 surfing montages, right?
Yes.
I rank them, and then I kind of want to hear what you think your rankings are.
Okay.
Okay, so there's 5, but I rank the third one the best because in my notes, what you just said, I wrote, I have no clue how they filmed it and got those sharks. That's my exact note in this.
Really?
Yeah. I have no clue how they could film it. It's really, it's like